Good morning, everyone. My name's Paul Nicholas, and I'm here from Abloy. I'm here today with one of our compliance partners, Net-Ctrl, and we're going to be in the corner there if you want to have a chat with us afterwards. So I'm going to talk to you for the next 30 minutes or so about compliance and escape door compliance. But part of the driver for today is a thing called Martyn's Law. Just for a little bit of research for myself, can I have a show of hands for anybody who's heard of Martyn's Law? One or two? Okay, that's good. So after the 2017 Manchester bombing, some of the victims' families got together, if you like, to talk to the government about how things could be improved in public buildings in regards management for events, how things are handled in the event of an incident. And Martyn's Law in September went to Parliament for parliamentary scrutiny. It's not so much a law that's saying you must do this or do that, it's guidance. But part of that guidance does cascade down into the education sector, schools, colleges and universities. And it's really saying how they could be better prepared for an attack or as I prefer to say, some sort of incident. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. So within the draft of Martyn's Law, it talks about locking doors to prevent unauthorized entry. So I think we'd probably all agree from a, dare I say it, a common sense point of view, we don't want people getting into our facilities who shouldn't be. And escape doors, by their very nature, of course, are easy to open. So if they're easy to open, they're easy for people to get through, they're easy to be left open so people can get in. It also talks about facilitating lockdown. Now, in my world, lockdown really means physically locking a door, but in the education sector and many others, lockdown really relates to run, hide, and tell, which for me is probably the best form of self-defense. And Martyn's Law also talks about evacuation, which is moving yourself and your students from one part of the building to another. And of course, evacuation. Now, all of these basically require the use of escape doors. And escape doors and the management of escape doors, not just in educational facilities, but in other areas as well, but we're talking education today, is a real issue because we do things to escape doors that we shouldn't. And we do them for the best reasons. We might block an escape door because we don't want students to get out onto the road. So it's a real good reason, it's safety. But the way we can go about it can be dangerous and non-compliant. And we're going to look at some of these and we're going to talk about how we can manage escape doors compliantly because there's new regulations in place. So some of this you might well go, ooh, we've got that. It wouldn't surprise me. I can't think of a school or an educational facility that I've ever been in which doesn't have non-compliance. So don't feel that you're alone. Okay, so as we said, Martyn's Law, we're going to focus on facilitating evacuation. We want to be able to move through the premises easy, evacuation, move through the premises and get out. And we've got to use escape doors to do that. So typical environment. So we've got escape doors. Now I'm going to try not to throw too many numbers at you, but for anybody who wants to take some notes, there are two standards, BSEN 179 and BSEN 1125. That relates to escape door compliance. And if we look at a typical environment, then as you can see, there's an awful lot of doors that fall under the category of either an emergency escape door or a panic escape door. So making sure that we are compliant is pretty important because they make up quite a large number of doors. All right, so Abloy, we've been talking about this for many, many years, and we're recently learning better ways of engaging with your community. And we have a thing called review, and it stands for responsibility. Who's responsible for this? Education, verification, inspection, expertise, and then the ways and means. So we're going to take you through this step by step. So the first step is escape door, fire door. It's not a fire escape door, it's a fire door, and it's an escape door. And so it's either a panic escape door or an emergency escape door. The two are not the same. There are different standards. So perhaps at your facilities, there's an annual inspection on your fire doors. Well, it doesn't extend to your escape doors. And the chances are, even if a fire door was inspected by a fire door company, they're not going to be aware of the compliance requirements of 1125 and 179. And the third standard that I'll introduce later. So fire doors aren't escape doors aren't fire doors. That's, you need to understand that. And we refer to them either as emergency or panic escape doors. So just to help with painting the picture, an emergency escape door, I'm sure we've all seen lever handles. The idea is it's a single action. You grab the handle, open the door, and out you go. As a guide, used where there's less than 60 people going to go through that door, but perhaps more importantly, it's for people who are familiar with the building, okay? A theatre, which might hold only 50 people, might have some of those, but the chances are they'd have these things, the crash bars or the push bars, okay? And these are panic escape doors. So where there's more than 60 people likely to use the door, or where they're not familiar. So these are two standards, okay? And again, just those numbers for anybody wanting to reference, it's EN 179 and EN 1125. So really, really, really important. An escape door must be operated by a single action, a single mechanical action, okay? Grab the handle, open the door, push the bar, the door opens. Yeah, this is where things start to go wrong. Now, we can laugh a little bit at this image, but when I refer to this later on, I'm actually going to say that's not too bad. It's not too bad because it's so bad. It's so bad if you see that, you're going to do something about it. Agreed? You know, we're not exactly making exit easy. Now, we all had a bit of a snigger, but we can kind of understand perhaps why they've done that. It might be that that door was used as a shortcut and it's leaving the perimeter open. So we kind of get it. It could be that the kids are getting out and there's a main road there. So we kind of understand why they might have done it. It's not the best improvisation. It's certainly not compliant, but it's so blatantly obvious, it's probably going to get addressed. Unlike some of the other ways we modify doors and they're not compliant. Anybody want to take a guess what might be wrong with that?
The digilock.
Correct. So we've got an escape door because it's got the green running man, and we put a code lock on it. Now the code lock's there, I'm assuming, to stop people without a code lock from getting through it. So now we've stopped anybody from getting through it who doesn't have a code. But of course, I think that if we were running away, and forget fire alarms and things like that, but if there was an incident on site and you were having to get away from someone, I don't know about you, I'm one of these people, if I go to a door, it says pull, I push. And if it says push, I pull. I'm just one of those people. I do this sort of thing. You're not necessarily going to get your code right first time. So at the very least, it's going to delay you getting through it, but it's non-compliant. Now, there was an organization, multinational, that actually did that on a door in London, and they got fined £300,000. I think there's probably a bit more to it. There probably was an incident, but it was because of a code lock. So great, well spotted. How about this one? Anyone? Well, first clue, we are adding non-compliant access control to it. So we know it's an escape door, okay? What was the thing I mentioned before? Escape doors got to be operated by a single action. So we've got a push, we've got a handle there. That's the first activation, and that should be the only activation. But now we've introduced another control method. Okay, either a request to exit or a glass break. That makes that non-compliant. Now I'm going to look around the room and you're all going to go, yep, we got that. And you probably have. But that's actually non-compliant because it's two actions. Okay, it's very, very common out there. You're not alone, but with the new standards that are coming in, it's actually non-compliant. Okay, so just to recap, 179 and 1125 should be operated by a nice single action, just operate the lever, okay? If you add other forms of operation, like a push the button or a request to exit, it's non-compliant. Now, I'm just going to stop myself there for a second. This applies to escape doors. If it's not an escape door, it's not a problem. Also, if it's an automated door, the rules are slightly different. So if you've got motorized doors operations, okay, this is a generalization, introduction to what's going wrong, but also how we can help you, okay? So BS 179 and 1125, these are ways of doing it compliantly. So what we can use is, instead of a mag lock and a request to exit button, we can fit electromechanical locks. So the lock Basically, the mechanical lock that was on the door before we added access control is changed to electromechanical device, and everything then remains one action to go back out. You must always allow free egress. So as part of what we offer as guidance, we put things in a package. So for an escape door for 179, and then a crash bar. So it's very easy to make it compliant. The problem is that from the consultancy down to the architects, down to the developers, to the M&E consultants, down to the guy fitting the hardware on the door, we're doing things from habit. We're doing things that we've been doing for 30 or 40 years, okay? And unfortunately, it's not actually compliant. So, single action door, this is what we want to do. Motorized lock, and that would give you a compliant solution. Okay, as an example. Okay, so escape doors, some of the challenges. Let's get back into the real world. So some of the challenges that we have in schools includes student escape. Again, going back to that first image where we had the rope tied around the door, it could well have been because students were getting out through that door and getting onto the road. We know we want to stop that, but we need to do it compliantly. If we add read into a door and we add a mag lock to it, then it means that to get out, there's two actions, so it's not compliant. And of course, how do we add read out? If we go back to that code lock, that was like a form of read out. So how do we add read out to an escape door? Because we can, but how do we do it compliantly? So there's a new standard, 13637, electrically blocking. Okay, so I'm going to run through with you what does happen at the moment, and we understand why it happens, but it doesn't make it compliant. So at the moment, we might add a mag lock, an electric lock, and now we've got these two actions. So I've already mentioned that that's non-compliant. Now, if we add that on a door, and part of our requirement is to stop children from exiting through that door, anyone want to suggest what we might do? Any thoughts? Yep, we do this. We put it up high, out of reach. So now it's non-compliant because it's two actions, but now the kids got no chance of getting out because they can't reach it. What else do? We relocate the control devices away. So escape door must allow everybody to get through that door. So when we go doing this, if the teacher's incapacitated, the kids can't get out. And the question is, which is worse? Is it the piece of timber with the rope, or is it this that flies underneath the radar and we don't actually realize it? For me, the rope and the timber is, pretty bad, but it is so obvious, perhaps it might get addressed. This we know is out there in the marketplace all over the place. We understand, emphasis is, we understand that. The people who did it didn't know the rules and regulations, and that's why it's there. So, can we make it compliant? The answer is yes, we can. We use that standard 13637. So what we can do, 13637 is as a standard, the equipment that reaches those standard requirements perform in a certain way, they're manufactured in a certain way, but most importantly, the devices that you need to make a solution is the control device and the locking devices. They have to be tested together. And when I say tested together, I don't mean put on a bench and yeah, that will work. I mean tested together, third party, for continuous operation. So when we talk about compliant equipment, in Abloy's case, as with our competitors, there's a list of equipment that's 13637 compliant. And what it allows us to do is to manage doors in a sensible way to overcome some of the problems that you've got. So, remember before I said two actions is not allowed? So two actions is allowed now if you use 13637. Is that working? It didn't work on there. Okay, so with 13637, we can activate the control device and then operate the handle. We're allowed to do that because the equipment installed is 13637 compliant. So what actually happens? So we'll take a situation. We've got an escape door in the classroom. We want to stop students from getting out. Okay, this is something which I'm sure you'll all recognize. So here's a device, okay? When the device is activated, a timer is started. Now, there are lots and lots of details within 13637, and one of the requirements is if you activate a control device, which complies with 13637, the device can delay the release of the door for up to 15 seconds, okay? So the device is activated, up to 15 seconds later, all programmable, the device will talk to the lock and it will release the lock. Now, the conversation going on between the device and the lock is not a normally open going closed or normally closed going open. It's data, okay? And that data is monitored. This is in part of the 13637 compliance requirement because this has to perform. This has to be monitored for fail-safe operation, okay? So 15 seconds elapses, the door will release. Now, within that 15 seconds, the teacher might be able to respond, talk the student down. We certainly don't say you don't stop them from going out. It depends on what your policies are and depends on what the actual situation is. So we've got 15 seconds to respond, then the door releases. Now, we're fully aware that there are requirements where that 15 seconds isn't long enough. So where we need to, we can have a second device that can be operated, and that will extend the door release time by a further 3 minutes or up to 3 minutes. Again, this is written within the standards. You can't just make this up. This is what you must do, what you must have. Importantly, if this is the door here and it's been activated and I need to come over here to extend the delay time, I must be able to see the door. Now, on bigger sites, sometimes that's done with CCTV. That's fine. It's got to be manned, but you can extend the release time. A question we get asked all the time, so why can't we use a glass break? It's very simple. The technology within a glass break does not meet the requirements of 13637. All the devices must be tested together to operate, okay? If you took a compliant lock case and then fitted a green glass break, that would not comply. Even if you needed immediate release of the door, in which case you need one of these devices, on paper, the glass break would seem to do it, but it doesn't comply to 13637. So 13637, single action for the door, for the mechanical bit, plus a glass break, not allowed. Put a 13637 terminal in, you can do it, okay? Right, so some more examples. So we've got a door. The requirement, was read out. So what we've got the readout reader, which effectively blocks anyone else from going out. The typical temptation here and what we see in the marketplace is we put a green glass break there, which, as I've said, for blocking now, it doesn't comply. So we stick a escape terminal in. There's different types for different applications depending on what you've got. So that's a second type. So what we've actually got here is we've got a mechanical lock case, single action, 179 compliant, absolutely great. We add secondary locking to it, a compliant lock. So there's a list of locks that comply. We've got the readout reader, but at the moment we haven't catered for the children who need to get out in an emergency. So we put the EDS unit in, and that's basically how we do it. Very straightforward, very simple. And if we wanted to add read in, that might be the configuration. It's not actually the wiring configuration, it's just how things can link together to control. So the readout reader controls the lock, the EDS controls the lock, the secondary lock, and the read-in reader would control the secondary lock. Okay, that's a compliant way of doing it. So the points, invacuation, evacuation, and even the dynamic lockdown, as they refer to it, is run, hide, and tell. These all rely upon compliant escape doors, because escape doors are going to be the way that you actually get out of the building. You're going to be using escape doors. So escape door compliance then becomes relevant. Like I said before, the problem is people don't know. So going back to review, we talk about responsibility, education, verification, inspection, expertise. So we've gone through what actually goes on, now let's see how we can help. So the fire safety order basically puts responsibility with the person who has day-to-day control of the premises. Now, often that's the head teacher. Sometimes that is, passed over to someone else. But I would suggest that if we take the head teacher as an example, it's highly unlikely they're going to be aware of escape door compliance. In fact, I'd be almost a bit concerned if they were. But the reality is they are the responsible person. Now, the other responsible person is the person adding the product to the door. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the time, they do not understand the standards either. This is a problem that we've got within this sector of access control. From the top to the bottom, compliance is not understood. Abloy have been talking about this message for many, many years. Martyn's law coming in, recent changes in legislation, even the guidance now from the National Security Inspectorate, which is a guiding body for the industry, in October. Well, it's still October, so this month they've just updated their guidance, and now they basically have cut and paste from our guidance. So it's really beginning to get momentum because it's important. It's easy how things become non-compliant. We understand it, but it doesn't make it right. And this is the real problem. They don't know that they're responsible for it. So we are doing things to help share the information without it being like a herd of buffalo running at you with a bunch of numbers that you've got to understand. So Abloy ourselves, we run what we call the Abloy Academy. We have a lot of initiatives for training. So sometimes it might be estates departments, it might be someone else who ends up being responsible for access control. So we do courses, they're REBA approved, CBD courses for training. And in addition to that, we have a number of videos and things like that, which will be available actually from the information you get after the show. These are all the new initiatives, because we're only really learning now how to communicate with this, with you guys in the right way. Verification. So the idea is that even after something like today, you'll have a bit of an idea of what to look for if you're responsible going back to a site sort of thing. Okay, this doesn't look quite right. It's 2 actions. So there's the examples of the doors. The one which is, like I said, arguably that will get addressed, but the other 2 can fly underneath the radar. So as an organization, we offer free services. We'll come and look at your doors. We'll do an assessment for you. We'll give you a report to help you manage the doors. If need be, depending on where you are, if a collective number of people wanted to get together, we'd come down and do a REBA approved CPD as well. But the most important thing is whatever way we can help, we are there to help. So expertise, this is where really, if you want to start electrically blocking a door, if you want to put special measures in to stop the children from getting out through a door, you've got a gym door. I think I spoke to someone who was here. Yourself, yeah, a gym door. It's bad for the kids. It's an escape route out. So how can we manage it? It's a standalone solution. There's no access control needed, but we can manage the door through an EDS unit. But to do that, you've got to understand the standards. So we'll either help you understand it, or we'll come and we'll write a specification for you. And then you can put that out to tender. So the last point I'm just going to touch on is within Martyn's law, it talks about locking doors to prevent unauthorized entry. So I'm just going to run through a couple of key points about locks and locking design and the pros and cons, because it's something that is slightly misunderstood. So a little comparison against maglocks, and we do make maglocks, but we only make 13637 compliant maglocks. And mechanical locks. So just to go through these quickly, electromechanical locks are designed to fail locked or unlocked. So if you've got a perimeter door and the power drops off, the mechanical lock will still stay locked from the outside, but you can always get out because it's an escape door. A maglock, if it's just a maglock controlling a door and the power fails, it will fail unlocked. So if we take worst case scenario, we have an incident at a place, people are trying to get into the building with weapons. One of them gets in, hits the fire alarm, all the doors will release, and that means every entrance point is now vulnerable. Okay, if you use a maglock. If you use mechanical locks, they can stay locked. Electromechanical locks cannot be easily compromised. Now, to explain that, if anybody wants to come and have a look, we'll show you how an electromechanical lock monitors itself. Is the door shut? It's all integrity monitored. Has that bolt been fired? In other words, is that door locked? Is it not just shut? Is it locked? So we monitor all these different states of the doors. I don't know if you realize this, but you could try it. If you go back and you stick a hair clip or a paper clip on your maglock, well, you've just disabled it. And I know that children, once they get wind of things, you know, they will try it. Electrical mechanical locks allow free egress and comply with the 1125. So in general, electromechanical locks will comply with the standards for escape. So if you're not putting access control on it, or if you are, and you're using electromechanical locks, then you don't have to worry about glass breaks and request to exits. I can't read from here. Maglocks can retain residual current. Yes. So if we just assume that if we press the button on a maglock, we want it to release, sometimes they'll fail to release because of residual current, but also sometimes they won't open under side load. Now, my guess is if you're trying to get out through an escape door, you're probably pushing on that door. So you can sometimes get trapped even though you have released the door in your own mind. When fitted escape door additions, electromechanical locks will retain compliance, as I mentioned before. And where fitted to escape doors, additional maglocks, can change the status of your escape door. So your escape door was compliant, you put a maglock on it for read in, and now it's 2 actions to get out, so you just made it non-compliant. Unless it's 13637. Electromechanical locks can monitor the door position posts, as I mentioned before. So this monitoring, you know, if we just assume for a moment we're putting access control in to control access, then we want to make sure that the door's locked, not just closed, but the locks has fired. So electromechanical locks will do that. And, oh yes, the height of maglocks. I've been to a few places and I'm not that tall for nowadays, so I've had to do that. So maglocks do have a height restriction on them as well. That's 2 meters. Okay. So, yep. Electromechanical locks can be used as part of a BSEN 13637. So can maglocks, providing the maglock has been tested to 13637. So we're not anti-maglock, we're just saying use them in the right way. Okay, so ways and means, Abloy as an organization and our partners like Net-Ctrl here, we've got a range of products. Net-Ctrl use a different platform from ours, but on the escape door compliance and the locking side, we work together. We work together with just about every manufacturer of access control because this is about the locking bit, not which reader you use or whatever. So if there's anything that we can do for you, we are more than happy to help. Like I said, we can come to site, we run educational seminars. So that's the idea, is to help. And I think that takes me to questions. Yes, sir.
Hi, thank you. Will the slides, could they be sent to attendees afterwards?
Yeah, actually, the presentation, I've asked Chris not to send the presentation. I'll tell you for why. It's not going to mean much. What I've given Chris is links to videos that we've done. We've done them especially. We've got them made in time for this event. So there's a 5-minute video, which is like a compressed version of a booklet we've got available for you. So that's available. And then we've got a 15-minute webinar compressed, okay? That will give you a very good idea. And then if you want any more information, when you follow those links, you know, you'll be able to, you'll have my contact details. So anything that you want, I'll send you.
And then the new standard of 13637.
Yeah.
Does that only apply to doors that have a mechanical lock? I.e., if there's no mechanical lock and it's just a maglock, does that standard apply?
Right. So if it's, let's go back a step. If it's an escape door, okay, an escape door should have hardware on it, but not always. It can just be a free door. Is that what you're like referring to, perhaps?
So if there's no mechanical lock, say it's got a maglock, there's a break glass which kills the power.
Right.
As you know, maglocks fail with the same as for
okay.
a fire alarm system or otherwise. Does the 13637 apply?
Yes, it does. If it's an escape door, on the video that we've done, we talk about that example. So we've got a door, it's just a push door. There's no locking mechanism. It's just it's got a door closer. And we want to secure that door we would probably put readout on it so people can get out on it. So if we put a readout on it, we now need to put a compliant way of letting others out. So a green glass break and a maglock wouldn't work. What wouldn't be compliant? It would work, but it wouldn't be compliant. What you'd need to do is fit a compliant maglock, because there are maglocks that are compliant, and you'd fit a compliant control terminal, the EDS terminal. That would then make it compliant. So because it's an escape door, it's got to be a single action unless it's 13637 compliant.
So the single action being the break glass.
The single action would be to push the door, because you've still got to push the door. So it's handle.
No, so if there's no handle,
yeah, I'm saying if we count the handle and the action of opening it as one, the push would be one. A question we get asked about that terminal I showed you is, can we put a lid on it? Guess what? It adds an action, so we can't. Okay, but if there's anything I can clarify with you.
No, just looking at use cases and things. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, that's fine. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
What's a fire door? You never said at the start.
Okay, so a fire door. Okay, so a fire door is a door that is built to stop fire and perhaps smoke, depending on the standard. So I'll digress for a moment. One problem that the sector has is that we have a fire door. So the fire door is being built with a fire-resistant core. And then what happens is we put it on access control. We drill a hole in it to fit a maglock. We've just made that fire door non-compliant because we drilled a hole in it. So this is all becoming a lot more complex now. So in the UK, we tend to use a door, a frame. The door comes along, gets fitted to the frame, and that's how it gets built. What's happening now is the sector is moving towards what we call door sets. That's what they do in Europe. So they buy the frame, the door, everything's been made in the factory. The lock case has been cut out already. So the UK is in a bit of a transition, but as a general rule, a fire door it could be in the middle of an escape route. So it might be a fire door that's an escape door, and or an escape door that's a fire door, but the two are not absolutely linked. So a fire door is a separate door, but the real important thing is a fire door inspection doesn't extend to escape doors. I was at a conference the other day, I was talking to some fire door inspection guys, and I said, they said, oh, sometimes we might look at one or two, but it's not part of their remit. So there's this big gap out there. Anyone else? Who's got the mic? Yes, mate.
So I just wanted to clarify what exactly constitutes an escape, because
an escape door.
Well, an escape event, because in the case of a fire alarm going off,
yeah,
where it would release the maglocks, for example,
yeah,
does that then not just make it one action to open the door?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. The answer is when the standards relate to what the door is. You're right that if you get a maglock and the fire alarm activates, fine. But an emergency might not be fire. It could be a gas leak. It could be a chemical incident. Heaven forbid, and we know it's happened. It could be an attack from one person on other persons. So the actual standards, if you go to the Door Hardware Federation and you look up 1791125, it's actually as the standard relates to the door. You can't assume it's going to be connected to a fire alarm system. So the short answer to your question is no, that wouldn't make it compliant just because of the fire alarm.
And the escape door doesn't have to be the final exit door. It's any door that has to be gone through on the route out, or
so. Okay, so typically a fire door is not on the perimeter of the building, because what's the point? Typically, fire doors are within the building. So escape doors can be doors on an escape route. So that image I put up of a typical school. That's why we say there's an awful lot of escape doors in educational facilities. Every classroom's probably an escape door, unless it's got a designated escape door somewhere else. So escape doors can often be final escape doors, okay, which often would be a 1125, a bar, because you might have more than 60 people going through it because they might be coming from several directions. Typical escape doors are a 179, and they'd be the ones, classroom doors, office doors, doors going up through the hallway. But of course, what we do know is in educational facilities, we have a lot of double doors, and we want to secure them. The motivation is we want to look after the kids. but we can't do it in the way that we have been doing. We can't continue to do that, or we can continue to do it, but it's not compliant.
And then Martyn's laws, it's his guidelines, and then with the compliance, what if you take obviously we all work in education, schools and things. Unfortunately, go to hospitals quite a lot. We see what goes on in hospitals. Hospitals have got buttons out of reach of children. They've got your green buttons with flaps over them. They've got maglocks, double doors, and lots of doors. Where does this become compulsory,
right,
and compliant, and the risks associated with it? Because obviously the sector in the UK is huge.
Absolutely, it is.
You know that generally most doors, if they've got electric locks, they'll release with a fire alarm, and then as a backup, you've got the break glass.
Yeah.
Where is this on the
very
scale
good
of
question?
things?
Because if we, I was talking to someone earlier today, and if we just went to an extreme where you talk about custodial suites, right? Well, we don't necessarily want to have escape doors ready for all the bad guys to get out. So there are if you like, exemptions. Now they're not exemptions in that they are written, but it's the building control. Someone's got to sign off on it. So what we talk about is compliance. This is what you should do. 13637 is best practice for, if you like, internal doors, but it's mandatory now for final escape doors with pedestrian access. Okay, so there's best practice, correct, yeah. And if you're fiddling with a door, then you should be. What we're not saying is go out there and panic and leave this room saying, "Oh, this guy said we've got to change all." Not quite the case, because if something goes wrong and you're in front of the judge, then you're going to have it's been installed for 15 years, Your Honour. But if you're doing something now, and as one of my colleagues says, well, I wouldn't want to be in front of a judge explaining it. Well, I wouldn't want to be in front of the parents. That's my fear. And from the Abloy point of view, we are here to promote life safety. That's all it's about. To help you guys understand compliance. The thing is that with most of the problems that you've got, the way you're going about managing them, you can now manage them in a better way. That's the reality, and a safer way. And I think that's what we all want to try to achieve. But don't leave here thinking, oh my goodness. But if you want us to come and have a chat with you, if you want Abloy to come and do an assessment or to give you some more training, that's what this event is all about. Does that answer your question? Yeah, great. Anyone else? No, well, thank you for not running for the hills when I started. I appreciate that. And like I said, if you want any more information, please come and talk to us, but there will be information shared. It's going to be in the form of videos as opposed to documentation, which will help you. But anything special that you need, just come and talk to us. Okay, thank you.